I'm awake. My powers are intact. Let's do the news. Lou Dobbs. Lou Dobbs. Now, I don't know how many people, I don't know your age ranges, and so I can't necessarily give any kind of, deference one way or the other. However, back during the time of Keith Olbermann, now people might look at Keith Olbermann as pretty disgraced, especially from the standpoint of the left, when he's saying, oh, I thought George Bush was bad. George Bush killed 1 million people. And Keith Olbermann, night after night after night, wouldn't shut up about it, railed about it. And because of such, people looked at him as a lefty icon. Well, we come to find out he was just a Democrat. He could be a lefty icon when he's pushing up against Republican. And yeah, he may have those feelings about war and everything else, but Keith Olbermann shut up when Obama took office and started additional wars. Perhaps it wasn't entirely the president. It was only the party. But that's it. Those are some of the funniest videos in the world eviscerating this exact same Lou Dobbs. And you just have to see the videos. Check them out on YouTube. But this it. Lou Dobbs brings a woman on and gives a master class in propaganda. I thought this was so good that I thought to myself, maybe I should give Lou Dobbs a really good picture on this. And I say, no, fuck that, fuck Lou Dobbs. There's a fire. And in the midst of a fire, your priority is what are the things you care about? Priority first, sense of urgency. That you really realize, oh shit, there was a fire. What do I care about? I care more about the people who are struggling and the catastrophes that those people are in, as opposed to this nonsense, which is all it is. They're painting a perspective of the world that is radically not true. So radically not true is I even wonder when people see this, if they take it in as true. And unfortunately, it probably is. I've met people who said some of the wildest things. So if Dobbs is here doing this, there are people who are watching Dobbs. That means that there are people who are absorbing what Dobbs is telling them every bit as much as people who are absorbing Russiagate with Rachel Maddow. So yeah, this is a master class in propaganda by one right-wing lunatic, flagrant liar at this point, Lou Dobbs. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal and Patreon. I saw this clip, and I was like, is this what they, like, look, my constraint when I'm giving you this, I try to be honest. Even though I know that within the context of that, there are blind spots. And when I get in arguments with people, sometimes they elucidate those blind spots, to which I say, okay, that's fair. It would never occur to me to get on either the radio or my channel, or for that matter, if somebody put me on television, to just lie. That blows my mind. And because it would never occur to me to do that, it's very possible that it would occur to other people in the same way. In which case they will absorb the information, think to themselves, there's no way this guy would just get on here and flagrantly lie like this. And yet, millions of dollars do interesting things, especially when you have a low sense of decency. I mean, even shamelessness of some degree, where you would do something like this. And yet, millions of dollars, integrity is expensive. And those 10s, 20, 30 million of dollars, yeah, that can weed away at getting rid of it. Which, in this case, Lou Dobbs, picture of a man, no integrity whatsoever, and would go to his audience and flagrantly lie. And even though I say that, I still, to some degree, am shocked by how masterful the class is that he's putting on. So let's look at it and let's analyze this video. It's ludicrous on its face. And yet, keep in mind, there's an audience that's looking at this and saying, I watch Lou Dobbs every night. Lou Dobbs would never lie to me about this stuff. If Lou Dobbs is saying it, it has to some degree be right.
You're now the party of the American worker, the American family, and the hell with Tom Donahue. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I'll also say we're the party of jobs. And because of the PPP loans that President Trump put forward, it kept so many small businesses in place. I talked to somebody last week in Michigan who said, I would have gone under my business was going to go under, this business I had built from scratch. And because of the PPP loan, I was able to stay in business. And because of how much I'm so thankful to President Trump, I'm about to open 3 more restaurants. This is what this president is. He's the jobs president. He's the people president. He is the fighter. He's the trade president. He's the veterans president. He's the healthcare president. He has come to Washington and he has said, I am done with the swamp and the bureaucracy and the people who say no, and we are going to change the system. And that is why he needs 4 more years, because we have got to weed out the people who are here for their own power and not for the benefit of the people they are elected to represent.
Few things you need to notice here. So let's play this back. That goes quick. But look at the chyron at the bottom. The Chamber of Commerce is backing Democrats. Lou Dobbs is filthy rich many times over. Filthy rich Lou Dobbs, who's paid tens of millions like every other one, I would imagine. Firmly in the pocket of business, firmly. I would wager to you has a ton of stock and firmly works and engages with all sorts of business people. That's his perspective of the world. That's why he's a Republican. But more interesting, though, the chyron. Look at this again. Look at this. Look at this. Meaning, without anybody saying a word, without anybody acknowledging it, without anybody even bringing it up. At the bottom, the Chamber of Commerce is backing Democrats. Why is that important? That gets important because when you're trying to make this argument that you recognize that the public is fed up. I, Lou Dobbs, and my wealth. Problematic. However, if we code ourselves like business leaders, the rich, the wealthy are backing Democrats, which is true, every bit as much as Republicans. But if we can cast that, really Joe Biden is the corporate candidate, every bit as much as Hillary Clinton was the corporate candidate. You have the Chamber of Commerce, of course, the icons of business backing Democrats. You have all of these other squishy Republicans, corporate Republicans, backing Democrats. What is the perspective that you're trying to convey here without saying anything? Business, the rich. Business is in the pocket of Democrats, big business. Look at this. To make this point that much more plain and why that's important. This is Jeff Bezos' house. This is Jeff Bezos' house. Observe for the moment what's taking place.
I don't think that those are coming off because I just basically trained.
I just want to say, like, my husband, I'm one of the leaders. You know, doesn't do anything.
They're installing a guillotine in front of Jeff Bezos' house. Eat the rich. Very clear, very plain. Nobody forced them to do this. They, based on their world and based on the deficit of justice in the context of their world from the standpoint of economic, social, etc., very specifically economic at this point, I am going to go and put a guillotine in front of his house. The public is becoming aware of the issue. Now, let's go back to Lou Dobbs. If this is what is soaking in the public, and Lou Dobbs, on his show, I'm not, I'm not the rich guy that other people talk about. No, I'm something else. I'm fighting for the little guy. Chamber of Commerce backing Democrats. Beautiful. Beautiful. In such a sad, broken way in regards to what human beings would do for the sake of profit and for the sake of their interests, especially lie and try to get people who to vote basically against their interests every bit as much as Democrats. It's just a different flavor for a different audience, but the propaganda stays the same. Let's go back for another moment to hear what she was saying in this.
I'll also say we're the party of jobs. And because of the PPP loans that President Trump put forward, it kept so many small businesses in place. I talked to somebody last week in Michigan who said, I would have gone under my business was going to go under, this business I had built from scratch. And because of the PPP loan, I was able to stay in business. And because of how much I'm so thankful to President Trump, I'm about to open 3 more restaurants. This is what this president is. He's the jobs president. He's the people president. He is the fighter. He's the trade president. He's the veterans president. He's the healthcare president. He has come to Washington and he has said, I am done with the swamp and the bureaucracy.
That is some of the most ludicrous shit that any person has ever uttered. Just to put a fine point on this, if you're looking at what you're talking about, the jobs president, the trade president, the whatever president, the healthcare president, let's start at healthcare. Donald Trump has tried to destroy Obamacare without having anything on the other side, with this understanding that Republicans are not for it anyway, meaning the moment that you end it, the idea that you're going to get something else is ludicrous. In part to that, they tried to make a shittier version of Obamacare, which was Trump care, that nobody liked. You alienated Democrats and you alienated Republicans who didn't necessarily want to buy into healthcare at all. Failed. You had the House, you had the Senate, you had the presidency, and you still failed at getting rid of Obamacare. Great. If you're going to look at the healthcare thing also, they are still in court right now trying to get rid of Obamacare in the midst of a pandemic. Put that in context. So when that woman gets out there and says that, it's a flat fact lie. It's not even subjective. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. It's a person just uttering things. I love blue butterflies. I love blue butterflies. And they're like, what the fuck is he talking about? At least in her case, it is aimed and targeted at lying, to seducing a particular audience into a perspective that is against their interests. She's lying. Let's go to jobs. If we want to look at all these jobs, manufacturing jobs, this is under Trump. There are fewer people working in manufacturing jobs in the U.S. when Donald Trump took office, and will certainly be true on election day. So in a sense, he's failed his promises to bring manufacturing jobs back. The number of factory jobs in the United States peaked in 1997 and declined in fits and starts up to the 80s and the 90s, and spent pretty much the entire decade of 2000 collapsing. The collapse appears to be over, and though turnaround started during the presidency of Barack Obama, it continued and at first accelerated under Trump. Deficit. Like President Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush before him, not many members of the party in Congress, Trump insisted that his huge tax cuts would be benign. It's a lie that goes on in perpetuity, and yet they make that lie. It doesn't matter. Even if COVID-19 never happened and the economy had expanded in 2019 annualized pace during the 4-year in office, the metric of trade and relationship deficits and growth, the U.S. budget deficit or surplus percentage of the gross domestic product, shows the worst deterioration since the Great Recession, since Bush was in the White House. Failure. Trade wars. She's like, he's the king of trade. Donald Trump got into a trade war, and you know what he got out of it? Nothing. You had areas of the Midwest that was decimated because China, tit for tat, doesn't look at itself as being subordinate to the United States, so it's not going to take any shit off the United States. Tit for tat. And then they have a rational government, and a rational government said, look, we can't equal them, but what we can do is target it to affect and hurt Trump. So you had all of these soybean farmers, 1.3 billion people in China. What happens when they stop buying the surplus in the United States? Well, those people get fucked over. That's what happened. So trade, nothing. He gets nothing. Whether the trade deficit matters to Americans' well-being is a highly debatable question, but President Donald Trump believes that it does. He did every dollar of a trade deficit is a dollar Americans have lost. In 2016, he promised, as president, you will see a drop like never before. As president, Trump has sought to boost exports and reduce imports by imposing tariffs and changing trade deals. But we haven't seen any significant drop in the trade deficit. As a percentage of GDP, it's exactly where it is, roughly, when he took office. I could go through multiple metrics. He's failed. So it's not so much that I'm making the point that failure in failure's sake. I'm making the point of saying that what she is saying has no relationship to reality. Trade, healthcare, and by the way, jobs. Some people may be screaming at the camera right now saying, wait a minute. COVID-19. Yes, there was COVID-19. And the country would have given him a pass on that issue from the standpoint of the economy because they would have assumed that he was doing what he was doing for the best interest of the country. The PPP loans that these guys are talking about that were helping businesses, yes. And that even allowed people with the additional income having a bit more than what they were having before. And what did they do with it? They spent it back into the economy. Republicans said, we don't like that. Democrats had to fight tooth and nail just to get that because the party to which Trump was in didn't want to even give what they gave. So tell me again how this is to the benefit of humanity if Republicans get it all, because in real terms, if they get it all, they're not doing anything, or the most modest of things at that, nothing that would ameliorate some of the rough edges that those loans did. But those loans were bipartisan, and the Democrats had to push tooth and nail just to get what they got. Don't give me this nonsense that this was all Trump. It wasn't. More importantly, healthcare, the mask. If Donald Trump really cared about jobs, if jobs was the highest of his priorities, what Donald Trump would have did was come out the White House in a mask when it first started and said, we need people to wear masks. We need to get this economy up and running. We show a 30% reduction in the number of people who or an amount of transmission. And whether or not the mask is beneficial to you, it is beneficial to somebody else. And if all of you are wearing it, you, as an American patriot, are ensuring that the other people are safe. You are your brother's keeper in real terms. That's what he would have said. Because what his economists would have been telling him, what his doctors would have been telling him, is if you get those people to start wearing masks now, the transmission would decrease and you will be able to open those businesses that much earlier. That's not what happened. Because the priority wasn't Trump's jobs thing. It was his ego. Don't give me the shit about jobs president. A jobs president would have did what I just said. And would have shut those businesses down, supported all of those companies, all of those workers, not having the predominance of that money going to just corporations and whatnot, and not having these larger companies preying upon the money in lieu of smaller companies. You would have ensured that that didn't happen that way. You would have ensured that those workers were kept whole. You would have ensured that those jobs were maintained. Right now, all of that is gone. So even that is a failure. Even that is a failure. So from the standpoint of rational action and trying to keep the economy afloat, no, that didn't happen. From the standpoint of rational action from a healthcare perspective of trying to keep the economy afloat by getting those people back to work as soon as possible, that didn't happen. Don't give me this shit about a jobs president. You're saying things that is unmoored from reality. And Lou Dobbs will sit here and look you in the face and shake his head and nod. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. Those Democrats are the ones that's in the pocket of big business. And they alone are in the pocket of big business. That's astonishing. And notice something else. In the same breath that Lou Dobbs will have Chamber of Commerce backing Democrats, what do you see below him? Stock market. Con is exposed for what it is. That's the honesty of it. That's what, a particular class is talking about. But this is targeted at another class. That's my point. That's why I say this is masterfully done. They are basically arguing, look, it's the Democrats that are in the pocket. And Donald Trump is here to solve all of these other issues. And I, Lou Dobbs, is co-signing what this woman is saying here with a smiling face. I'm going to show you Chamber of Commerce backing Democrats as if big business is in the pocket of Democrats. But I got to show the stock ticker also. There are two classes of people that watch the show. The elite class looks at that and says, thank God Lou Dobbs is getting those poor people to back us in the race. They look at it and say, it is in our best interest as the rich, because we're such a minority. We need people who get conned for all sorts of reasons, whatever those reasons are, into voting against their economic self-interest. So if they are indeed looking at Lou Dobbs, they can see the stock ticker at the bottom and they can lovingly approve of what Lou Dobbs is doing from the standpoint of the propaganda that he's putting out to get people to vote against their own interests. Look, you probably can do the same thing with Rachel Maddow, right? And just keep in mind, you look at this and you may balk. Nobody believes that. And I'm telling you, they do. Which means, how does it feel when you look at that? You watch a little clip and you're like, God, man, I can't believe that she's saying that shit. But everything that she says, many of the people who are watching it are absorbing as true. Millions. Tell me why cynicism is not the correct position. Like, share, and subscribe.